What's up, Perisconies? It's John, and I'm back with Meaghan and Brooke for another episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. So, if you really haven't got the chance to tune in, and you should, by the way, because our podcast is great. That's just
Yes,
me, but it's everybody. But into our previous episodes, we encourage you to check these out because really we cover so many great cryptids and ghost stories and everything. And I don't want you to miss anything out, especially like the Hodag of Rhinelander. That is such a fun one. The Summerwind Mansion. Did they burn it down? Did the town burn it down? I wonder. The Beast of Bray Road. Hey, that's still a strong one. The Goat Man of Hogsback Road. And don't miss on that one, Brooke's personal encounter or account of it. Haunted Roads and Bridges, which I dare you. I'm calling you chicken if you don't go out and try one of these. And please let us know. We're at Dairyland Frights at gmail.com. We'd love to get a comment and see if you've not chicken and went on any of those roads or bridges. And also, we're on YouTube. And so you can go on there and listen to us. Eventually, you'll see our shiny, happy faces. And of course, more. So remember, we are on every major podcast site, including Apple. So make sure to listen and share with your friends and leave us some comments. We love to hear any comments you have about whether you think it's fake, whether you believe in it, whether you have a quick personal story you can share. We all love that, right, Brooke and Meaghan?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yes, would love to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. So this week, we're doing another, well, it was supposed to be a mini-sode. It kind of turned into a full-sode.
I like that.
So, and this is some of the weirdest and funny cryptids, aliens, and legends we could find. And you're going to get a real kick out of these great short stories from all over the Midwest. And after we bring these up, we're going to give our thoughts, right, Meaghan and Brooke, and see if we kind of believe in them or maybe not, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So let's get started. I'm starting first with the Banshee of the Badlands. Okay? Now, I've been to the Badlands 3 times. I've been dragged there. Meaghan and Brooke, have you ever been dragged on a family trip to South Dakota?
Yes, actually, I have been. Although we did have fun. We went on a road trip, and I was pretty young, so I enjoyed it. But yeah, we have been through the Badlands.
Meaghan?
I can't say that I've been there yet, but depending on your story, maybe I will, maybe I won't. We'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
So all right. So I've been dragged out there 3 times. I threatened my kids to take them to South Dakota because the reason I say that, it's beautiful, it's mysterious. But on the other hand, when I started to learn a little bit more about it, it's a little scary. And also, it's kind of like you're looking at some big rocks. So I was young.
Good description.
I was a teenager. So, I'm going to take my kids sometime because maybe I'll appreciate it more.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read this in an old-timey voice, okay? So Banshee of the Badlands. This is from, we'll get a kick out of this, trust me. So it's from the gentleman who wrote this is Mr. Skinner. He's the author of Charles Skinner, Myth and Legend of Our Land. So here comes my old-timey voice. Hell with fires out. He's what the Badlands of Dakota have been called. I've been there 3 times. No, I just stop there.
That's pretty good, though.
All right. So, all right, back to my old-timey voice, because we got to give ambiance, right, ladies? We got to give some ambiance to this. This is from the 1800s, by the way. This quote: "By moonlight, when the scenery is most suggestive and unearthly, and the noises of the wolves and the owls inspire uneasy feelings, the ghost is seen on the hill a half a mile south of the white dog. Her hair flowing, her arms tossing in strange gestures. So
I feel like I'm there. I really feel like I'm there.
I was just transported back.
So the Banshees of the Badlands is it's a creature. It's a Native American creature. Banshee. That's the American version. Now, one thing with this is it also has a buddy or a companion. And what they said is they use this. Now, this is scary. I don't know YouTube, but so the Banshee, she appears out of nowhere. So if you're in the Badlands camping, I don't know, taking a hike, whatever you're doing, she appears suddenly. Okay. And she has a companion. Now I'm going to get to the companion in a second because it's super scary. But this is, I think, really scary. Okay. So you're camping, hey, having a good time, right? Got the fire going, having some s'mores, whatever you're doing, right? So the Banshee will appear out of nowhere and she'll stand next to you and she'll look like she wants to ask you a question. Okay. Then if you ask her a question, this is where it goes crazy. She flings her arms aloft and with a shriek, and I think it would kind of sound like this. She then, and it echoes, I guess, for like a mile. Then she just disappears. And in an instant later, you can see her wringing her hands on a nearby hilltop. So
weird, huh?
Right? So imagine you're just having your s'mores, cooking hot dogs, and all of a sudden, boom! This lady appears, and she looks like she's about to ask you something, and you say, "Can I help you?"
Like, who are you?
But right, and she throws her arms up in the air, screams, boom, disappears. You look at the next hilltop over, and there she is, just kind of wringing her hands and looking really worried. So, yeah, that's not good.
Sad. It's a little sad.
It is a little sad. So it's based upon, I'm just going to do this really quickly because nobody really has, from my research, all they can figure out is she was some type of Native American woman and there was some major battle possibly, but there's no real evidence of that. And what happened was she viewed her tribe being slaughtered from the hilltop. Okay. And that's where they could find. And then she, whether she felt she should have fought and helped her tribe or whether, she was making decisions. See, to me, this is my personal opinion. And Meaghan and Brooke, please chime in. My opinion is this. She was coming. She looked out, saw her tribe being slaughtered by soldiers and was thinking, should I go down there? Should I not go down there? And that's where I think she's wringing her hands. And that's where I think she's wants to ask a question. Hey,
is it worth it? Yeah.
Yeah, right? She's lost.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the worst you could be, right? Imagine the hell you go through constantly knowing that you made the wrong decision and lost your tribe, your friends, and your family. So, yeah, that stinks.
But at the same time, what could she have done? I don't doubt that situations like that happen for sure. But
yeah,
I feel like she probably made the right decision not going down there because she probably would have died with them. But I mean, It sounds like she was tormented probably the rest of her life, though. So
yeah,
we don't know.
What do you think, Meaghan?
I would be interested to see what this lady looks like in real life because I'm just imagining that would be terrifying. You're just sitting there camping, having a good time, doing your marshmallows, roasting your hot dogs.
Yep.
And then she's just there like, hey, you want to, step right up, put a marshmallow on your own spit and get roasted.
Yeah. Right?
Why did someone ask her over? Hey, come on over.
Yeah, right? It's Midwestern hospitality.
Yeah, Midwest nice. Just invite her over for some more.
Now,
you said you mentioned something about a companion. She has a companion?
And I will get to that in a second here.
Okay, okay.
But I want to bring up this too. So cattle will not graze near this haunted butte. And they say cowboys, but there are cowboys in South Dakota because I saw them. They keep aloof from it. So really they don't speak about it, and nobody really knows how to solve it. Nobody knows how to, because normally in Native American cultures, there's a bunch of things you can do to put the spirit at rest, but nobody's really sure how to quiet this unhappy banshee. And this has been going on, for over hundred of years, so a long time. But this is even worse. So now you have someone that appears out of nowhere, and you're like, "Can I help you? Hey, come on, join us at the fire." She also has a buddy, and this is an unfleshed skeleton.
Oh,
so it's a skeleton that plays music, and like the sirens from the Greek mythology, where the sailors, you probably studied it or at least know of it, where they'll go past an island and they'll have this beautiful music, and they'll go with their boats to where it's coming from, and then smash their boats upon the shore, and the sirens will eat them. So it's really a terrible story. What this does is you hear the music, and I think it's a violin from what people are saying. And what they do is you follow the music, and it takes you out. They kind of like mesmerize you, and you go out, and then you basically go in the rocky pitfalls of the Badlands, and you're dead. So basically you're out there, and you hear violin music, you mesmerize, you start walking, boom, you fall into some pit or whatever it might be, and you're dead. So to me, that's extremely unnerving. And yes, I would wet my pants. I'm man enough to say that.
Love that they work together. That's so crazy.
I was gonna say, yeah, like I feel as though when I die, I would love to have a skeleton buddy who just plays music wherever I go.
Just goes around, right?
Plays a violin and like brings people to me, and I just scare the crap out of them, and then they run away. Like that's how I'd want to live my life.
That's ideal.
Note to self. Watch what Brooke does. Note to self.
I definitely want a skeleton buddy. That's for sure.
Skeleton buddy. Who doesn't? Meaghan, how about skeleton buddy?
I mean, maybe I could be your skeleton buddy, Brooke, or vice
that'd
versa.
be fun.
Yeah, we can work together. We can make it happen.
Great. I love that. That's awesome. So, quick thoughts. Yes? No?
I believe. I mean, I definitely. I'd be curious to hear like what people have actually experienced, because it does seem like it could be plausible. Like the Badlands are. I mean, being out there, it is very kind of spooky, paranormal feeling. Like I could definitely see something like this happening. So I feel like I believe that this is a thing. I would be curious. I don't know if I would want to experience it myself, but I'm curious.
Right. Meaghan?
I feel like it makes sense, especially if her spirit or her energy is kind of tied to the land. Maybe that kind of plays into it. So I could see it happening.
Yeah. One of the things and I would love to cover this, is so in South Dakota, you got to remember there is a ton of tragedies. Like we can cover the General Custer, his last stand, because there's an area you walk in, which I've been to twice. And when you walk into that area, and I wish, I didn't have a cell phone at the time, but anyway, when you walk into the area, it's completely, and I mean completely silent. No birds, no wind, nothing. It's in the middle of nowhere, and they have a statue and to General Custer, which I think they have taken down since then because of recent developments. So obviously into the Native American culture and how terribly we've treated them. But it's nothing. You drive back to this gravel road, you get out of the car, nothing. Just completely silent.
That would
and
be
people who have gone there at night, have seen apparitions of the battle happening, and they claim that they've seen like soldiers being, bludgeoned to death and screaming and that terrible stuff. So anyway, maybe in the future we could cover that, because I think South Dakota loans itself to so many spirits and so many legends. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very, very interesting state.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. I think I have a yes on that too, because I think there is something to this. And being, I've studied some Native American culture, and I just found out all these things. Especially, we'll tackle skinwalkers. That's definitely what we'll bring up. That's something we'll tackle in the future too. But looks like we got 3 yeses on it. So now Meaghan and the Crawford monster, is that correct?
All right. Crawfordsville monster.
Crawfordsville monster.
Yes. I've got a great story for you all. I think this one is a good example of, it's always a good idea to kind of question what you hear, what you see, make sure you maintain that healthy dose of skepticism, because this is a great example of how people kind of thought something was a thing and then it wasn't. So I'm going to get into that for you all. So I'm going to set the scene for you all. This takes place in Crawfordsville, Indiana. And this is all the way back in 1891. So this was in September. It was September 5th of 1891. And it's 2 a.m. in the morning. So it's nice and dark. And these 2 ice delivery men, because they had that back in the day, named Marshall McIntyre and Bill Gray. They're, getting ready for their shift. They're loading up the wagon, getting ready for their morning rounds, a normal start to their day. When all of a sudden, these 2 men feel this crazy, sense of dread, something just comes over them. They can't explain it. And something told them, look up, something in their intuition said, look up into the sky. So they do. And what they saw was this crazy, horrible, what they described as a crazy apparition. So I actually found the actual news story from the 1890s, and I read their newspaper article. And this is what the actual...
Hey, Meaghan?
Yeah.
Hey, you want to do it in old-timey voice?
Oh, yes, I love it. Although I can't do it as good as you, John.
Come on. Try your best.
Yes. Well, I won't try to up you, John. Won't be as good as yours.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So this is what the actual Crawfordsville Journal said. So I'm going to read the excerpt from that. This is what the men saw. It was about 18 feet long and 8 feet wide, and moved rapidly through the air by means of several pairs of side fins. It was pure white and had no definite shape or form, but it kind of resembled this white shroud fitted with propelling fins. That's what it says. There was no tail or head visible, but there was a great flaming eye.
Oh, very Sauron vibes. Yeah. Definitely Sauron.
Yes, this is the weirdest part. They heard this sort of wheezing, plaintive sound emitted from a mouth that was invisible.
All right.
It flapped like a flag in the winds as it came on, and frequently gave a great squirm as though suffering unutterable agony. So as you can see, this, was written in the 1800s, a little bit different. Yeah. This thing was just like this white mass moving around in the air. These men were like,
wild. It sounds wild.
Yeah, they're just trying to do their job. So absolutely terrifying. Although I don't think these men were too scared, because they just sat there for an entire hour watching this thing flying around in the air. It's like, all right, guys, got to get to your shift now. So they sat
I'm trying to think of what this could be, because you said that you think this is they mistook it for. I'm very curious to see where this goes.
All right. All you listeners, think about what you think that it could possibly be. Could it be a UFO? Could it be an apparition, a ghost? We'll find out. All right, so the men watch this thing for like an entire hour before they're like, all right, better get to our shifts. So they harness up their horses and they go on about their day. But, like nothing happened. But this made me laugh. That same newspaper clipping that I just read from said this. Both of the men were so worked up over the affair that they naturally associated it with the supernatural. They will carry a Springfield rifle to the barn the next time they go, and if the apparition comes flapping around, they will drill a hole in him with an ounce of cold lead. So they just think, maybe I can just like shoot this thing.
Just shoot it. Yeah.
Yeah. So can I do my old timey voice for a second?
Go ahead,
because
John.
This is perfect. I'll be the one of the ice guys. All right, he goes. If I see that creature again, I'll put a hole in his head full of lead. See, that's exactly
lead. I guess that's what Indiana people sound like, apparently. So we'll take your word on it, John.
Yeah.
All right. So this thing, it's kind of hard to see because they described it as being like 300 to 400 feet in the air. So it's hard to see what this thing actually was back in the day. So, but hundreds of residents started saying, like, we're seeing the same thing. Some people even said that when it swooped down towards them, they could feel the monster's hot breath as it swooped over them.
Ooh,
so, nice. Interesting. Okay.
Nice. I like it.
So over the next few days, the Crawfordsville postmaster, he is just drowning in mail. He cannot keep up with all this correspondence about what this thing is. And like some people are completely panicking about it. They're thinking like, oh, this is, an indication that Judgment Day is here. Like the world's going to end. So, some people, they were just having a meltdown about it. And then other people, they're like, okay, this is a load of BS. This can't possibly be, something, truly paranormal. So we even had our skeptics back in the day.
Yeah.
So they did a little bit more digging into it, and there were actually two different men. Their names were John Hornbeck and Abe Hernley. They were like, okay, we got to figure out what this thing is.
Good for them.
Yeah, we're going to put an end to this. So I think it was 3 days after the original newspaper clipping came out, a second article came out, and I'm going to read what that article said. So the title
don't have to use old timey voice.
Yeah.
Just use our voice.
All right, I will. So the title is so funny. They called it The Spook Explained. They were calling it The Spook. I love it.
The Spook Explained. I like that.
All right, this is what it said. The horrible apparition, which was seen by numerous citizens Friday night, has been explained satisfactorily, and it did not prove to be a ghost. John Hornbeck happened to step out in the yard about midnight and saw the horrible apparition as it swooped about town. He summoned Abe Hernley, and they proceeded to investigate. They followed the wraith around town and finally discovered, dun, 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 what could it be? It was a flock of many hundred killdeers. So these are like tiny little birds.
Oh, right.
Yes. So these birds, they were, passing over the city. And the running theory is that they were bewildered by the new electric lights. And so they were just discombobulated and lost their way. So that's why they were flying. And what the white that people were seeing, those were like the white breast feathers of the wings and the underbelly of the birds. So that's kind of what gave the blob its weird ghostly appearance. And it also explains why it was making this like crazy dismal, plaintive cry. It was the birds that were making that noise. So yeah. But something funny that I was reading about before I finished this story is that there were 3 different newspapers at the time in Crawfordsville, and only that one newspaper reported on this crazy story. So the running theory is that the Crawfordsville Journal kind of took advantage of the story, and they're like, we're going to make this into something, crazy so that we can drive more sales and, people want to buy our newspaper. So you can tell even by the way they were writing the article, it's like, okay, they blew this out of proportion, but still a great story.
Interesting. Yeah. More examples of early marketing. Great marketing.
Yeah, we love that. We're all marketers, so we can appreciate a good marketing tactic.
By the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the Hodag, right? This is kind of similar to the Hodag story that we did in our first episode where
Right.
Yes.
Come on.
Right.
Word kind of just flies around town, and before you know it, it's kind of turned into something more than it actually is. And he says, she says, it went out
for sure.
Yeah, it just got out of control, but it does have an explanation. Birds.
It was even birds. Yeah, it was even the same time period. I think the Hodag was 1890 as well, and this was 1891. So maybe it was just the thing to do.
I know something was in the water, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that and what else did you have to do? There were no cell phones. There was no TV. There was no internet. Right?
Sure. Just make up some cryptids.
Have some fun.
Add a little drama here and there. Why not?
Absolutely. That was a great story, Meaghan.
All right, thanks. I'm gonna pass it to Brooke. She's gonna talk about the haunchies.
Yeah.
The munchies? The munchies?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
All right.
I am personally excited for this one because again, I have another personal story with this one.
Awesome.
At some point I'm gonna run out of these, I think. But yeah, I'm like trying to cover all my bases. But my husband also especially really loves this story. He thinks it's so funny. And he like talks about it all the time. So I needed to talk about it. So this is the story of Haunchyville. So the legend of Haunchyville is another well-known story from Southeast Wisconsin, kind of where I grew up. And it is essentially a village of little people. There's a lot of different kind of things that people say, like different versions of the story. But in every story that I've heard, Haunchyville is essentially a society of little people. It's in the woods located in Muskego, Wisconsin. Muskego is about 20 minutes southwest of Milwaukee. So, and that it is close to a road called Mystic Drive. However, very kind of spooky, setting the scene a little bit. But the other details about Haunchyville and the story around it kind of tend to vary quite a bit depending on who's telling the story. So one of the more frequently told stories is that there was a group of circus dwarves, quote unquote. I want to say like this is a little, it's not the most like politically correct thing in the world. Little people are just people. Exactly. I feel like around the time that this story kind of like started being told, I feel like it was very common to just kind of like other them, and make them seem like they were this, I don't know, like circuses kind of did, like when, the bearded ladies and all, the different types of people. But so a story that was frequently told was that it was a group of circus dwarves who were fed up with the way that they were exploited and treated by their ringleader. And so they decided to kind of band together and kill their ringleader. And then they cut off his legs at the knees and his arms and hung him from a tree.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so then they proceeded to go into hiding because they didn't want to be caught for this act that they did. So they went into hiding. Right. So they went into hiding in the woods and they started their own secret society exclusively for little people with their homes built like to their own scale, with all of their own needs taken care of, and they just kind of like shut themselves off from the rest of the world. However, other stories do not describe the Haunchies as being like ruthless or these like awful people. They other people just say that they were sick of like the ridicule and abuse that they got as being part of this circus, and that they just wanted to be like peaceful and live their own lives. Another very common piece to the story, though, and this I always hear no matter what, is that there is this essentially a shotgun wielding protector who oversees the community. And he's like the one like normal sized person allowed in the community. And he protects the rest of them from being found out by the regular society. He is also usually described as being a very large albino man. I don't know. Yeah. Again, it's specific enough that I'm like, is there like some truth to this? But one story about this protector character is that he actually came upon the Haunchies when he was a young boy because he was running away because he too was being treated poorly because of the fact that he was albino. And so he found the Haunchy community, and he was, treating them with kindness and as an equal. And so they kind of took him in and raised them as like one of their own people. And then he grew up and became like their defender because he was like, turned out to be this like really large man. And then he also is described as being very violent, running around with a shotgun and like, shooting anyone who comes near their place.
All right.
Another story about the protector is that the little people were seeking out somewhere to put their community, and the protector was a farmer who offered up his land to them because he empathized with their plight, again, because of the fact that he was albino, and people kind of made fun of him and treated him as like this outsider as well, kind of like they did with little people.
Sure.
It's said that if the intruders, so this is another thing that varies depending on who tells the story, but one of the more common things that people say is that if intruders come looking for Haunchyville, the Haunchies, with the help of their protector, will again cut off the people's legs at the knees, so they're forced to live like one of them. Which again,
wow, that's morbid.
No evidence of this ever happening to anyone, but you never know. And then there are some, again, alternatives to this story. So I personally heard this story so much growing up, specifically from my brother and my uncle. They would talk about the Haunchies in Haunchyville quite a bit. And they would always say that the Haunchies would actually come out and attack intruders with baseball bats. And back in the day, I like genuinely believed that my uncle had like been to Haunchyville. Like, I don't know what it was about his story, but I like really believed that he had been there. But I think I would tell my friends too. I'd be like, oh yeah, my uncle was there. He really saw it. Like he got attacked with a bat. but I was like 8, 9 years old, so I was just being a gullible kid. But
poor little gullible Brooke.
I know. I'd be telling my stories. Like, my uncle was really there. But
it was real.
It was real. Oh my gosh. But it's just it's funny. So I like this quote. I saw it, this author Matt Wild, he was writing for the MilwaukeeRecord.com, and he had a quote that said, "If there's one thing that remains constant in the Haunchyville mythos, however, it's the absolute necessity for an ill-advised late-night road trip to confirm the existence of the mysterious town," which is very, very true.
Don't do it.
Yeah. And on that note, again, similar to me and my going to try to find the goat man, going to Hogsback Road, we did try to go find Haunchyville. When I first got my license, I went with a couple friends. We went out to Muskego. We printed out like MapQuest directions to get to Mystic Drive because we didn't have a GPS at that time. And when we got there, we only really found like a large field, and I don't think we were really in the right place, because I have seen other people who have actually gone out there and found other things. So I don't think we were really in the right place. But because I didn't really see a forest, but it wasn't a very kind of like rural area again. Yeah. Like a lot of Wisconsin is. But another funny thing is that when I was in 3rd grade, we had to write like little mini books, and we could write them about literally anything we wanted to. So I wrote one about my birthday party. And the other one that I wrote was a story about Haunchyville and a group of triplets who had lost their parents, and they like went down to Haunchyville to try to find it and like blend in because they were kids. It's very funny. I'll have to show you. I think I might have shown Meaghan at some point, but
yes, I love it.
Yeah.
it was really great.
This, but,
it's offensive. It's very offensive. I want to preface this.
All right.
It was like 2000, so things were a little different.
Have mercy on tiny Brooke.
Yes.
Yeah, come on, give her a break. She was young.
It was funny. Another quote that I liked was from I want to see, who were the people that wrote this? It was Richard Hendricks. Okay, yeah. Richard Hendricks, who co-wrote Weird Wisconsin, Your Travel Guide to Wisconsin's Local Legends. He actually co-wrote it with Linda Godfrey, who comes up in like every episode we record.
We love her.
I know, we love Linda. And rest in peace. Yes, rest in peace, Linda. One of his quotes from that book was, "It's one of those typical stories that teenagers tell. Older brothers and fathers and uncles tell these tales, and the kids want to go and see it for themselves," which I thought was funny, because I was like, that was my exact experience. Literally, my uncle and my brother. But anyway, so could there be any truth to the story? I thought that this was kind of interesting. Because when you think about it, Wisconsin is indeed home to many circus groups of the past. So, like most famously, the Ringling Brothers Circus originated in Baraboo. Like circuses were very common in Wisconsin, you know, in like the early 90s, like, you know, off through a lot of periods of time. And when circus groups disbanded, they did indeed have performers that didn't like really have much else to do or anywhere else to really go. Because again, they were kind of seen as like these strange people, these like others, you know, they're people born with like too many fingers or like all these, you know, different physical abnormalities, I guess.
Correct. Yeah.
And so it was conceivable that they would go and build communities of their own where they kind of like understood each other and could be like empathetic with each other. And another quote from that Weird Wisconsin book, Richard Hendricks said he couldn't find any truth to the stories, but Linda had said that she actually knew of a private community on Delavan Lake that had a bunch of ex-circus performers living amongst each other. So she could see, so she was like, you know, she could see where it would be partially true. Probably not, you know, all the like horrific things that they apparently did to people, but at least that it could be true that they all like live together in a community and try to kind of shut themselves away from the normal quote unquote people. But what is true is that everyone kind of said that they did experience is that people in this area of Muskego are very annoyed with trespassers in the area, and police commonly patrol the location, and they give out citations to teenagers looking for this mystical village, Mystic Drive. I know.
That's crazy.
Right? And one last thing that I thought was really interesting. So Matt Wild, again, from that MilwaukeeRecord.com website, he also used to write for the AV Club Milwaukee, and he wrote a story about Haunchyville back in 2010, and he went out looking for it, and he actually took a photo of a cluster of like dilapidated stone huts in the woods near Mystic Road. I put a picture into the outline actually, but it's really interesting. They were definitely like abandoned. But he imagines that the huts maybe like helped give rise to the urban legend back in the day. Like maybe someone going through the woods, they saw these huts and they kind of like came up with this story and started like spreading it around. And it was just kind of like this, you know, this tale that people started telling to their friends and family members. But he revisited the area in 2015, so 5 years later, and he found the same exact location. And he said what once was full of mystery and wonder had been essentially bulldozed over, and in the area is now an upper middle class suburban neighborhood, of course. So that entire area has been like completely destroyed and replaced with a bunch of like, you know, $500,000 to $1 million homes. So he said he fears that the legends of Haunchyville will soon die out because there's nothing really to go explore. So they'll so that's kind of which does kind of suck, honestly. Like I know, you know, it is what it is. We won't dive too deep into that, but I just thought, you know, I want to keep the legend alive. So I guess it's up to us to keep those stories going, even if there's now just a bunch of like rich people houses instead of cool old huts. But yeah, so that's the story of Haunchyville. It was a big part of my childhood growing up, and it's good times. And I'm really excited to hear about John's next story about the space penguins. So
I'm very intrigued.
Me too.
So just with this story really quick, there is a movie called Freaks. It was done in the 30s. So yes, political correctness wasn't there. And it's the same thing, basically. So these circus performers get together. It's a really good movie, actually. It was nominated for like 3 or 4 Oscars. It's on TCM if you have TCM. And they always play it during March for Oscar month. And these people get together, which they called freaks. We don't call them freaks anymore. Thank you. And they basically went against the owner of the circus, and they killed him and everything. And then they had to go on the, road to try to get away from people, and they created their own community. to survive and stuff. But it's really well done. There is some political things where you kind of cringe at,
right?
but
Of course,
it's the 30s. But it's a great movie, and you really feel for these people. That's what I was saying. I kind of feel for them, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
They didn't ask to be born this tall. They,
Mm-hmm.
like give them a break. So anyway.
Yeah.
Any more comments on that before I get my space penguins?
No, I think it's very interesting. I could definitely see like bits of it being rooted in truth.
Sure.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, awesome. So my next story is a fun story. You're gonna get a kick out of it. Like I said, you guys are gonna laugh at it and have some fun. But I'm going to really twist your minds because this could be the truest encounter with a cryptid/alien ever recorded. So,
interesting.
So yeah, nice teaser, right?
Oh.
So this one's called Tuscumbia Space Penguins, and this is a great story. And it's gonna, for a second, people, we're gonna go from the paranormal to the extraterrestrial. So put on your tinfoil hats.
Done.
I've got mine ready.
Take me to your leader. And this comes from a really fun wiki fandom site called Cryptid. It's like it says Cryptid Wiki fandom blogs, and they have I'll share it with you, Brooke, because I think you'll get a really quick kick out of it if you haven't.
Yeah, definitely.
And also a story from called strangeology.com. Yeah. So
interesting.
When you think of aliens from another planet, you think of typical grays, right? The black eyes, kind of human size. They're among us, by the way, but that's another episode.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But these aliens look more like penguins. That's according to Claude Edwards, a farmer, and he's from Tuscumbia, Missouri. So let me take you back to 1967, Valentine's Day, in the rural Midwest, like I said, town of Tuscumbia, Missouri. It's an early winter morning. Claude Edwards, a then 64-year-old farmer, was getting ready to attend to his daily farmer duties. And then as he dressed for the bitter cold weather, he had no idea what would be awaiting him on his remote piece of land.
Just a normal day,
Normal day, getting ready to feed the cows and slop the slop and hold the field. So when he ventured out, he looked towards the barn, and then something was kind of weird there, and then he notices cattle in this says the eastern field, where everything where was kind of looked agitated. Like, I don't know what cows look like agitated, but I imagine if you're a farmer, you would know, right? And what he saw was, you guys probably see the pictures here. I'm just going a little bit ahead here. Was these creatures in the field. And he believed them, this is Edwards, believed them to be about 3 foot tall. And they had a grayish green like ship. He also said that they had a wide set of black eyes and were wearing like goggles. And their arms were moving so swiftly that he had trouble discerning if they had hands.
Okay. So that's like the flippers.
Yeah. So, so he's going out, he's looking at this, and then all of a sudden he was like, well, okay, I'm gonna go a little bit closer. Of course, that's exactly what you do.
Let's go check it out.
Yeah, right. What's on my land, damn it? So he started to go a little closer, and he was awestruck. Now, this is a farmer, and if you know, like my whole side, my mom's family are farmers. They don't get rattled by nothing. They've seen it and heard it, and it's crazy. And if you ever get a time to talk to farmer stories, which I would love to do some farmer stories about cryptids and stuff. Oh man, they're the best. Anyway, so he's going there, and he still again see them like they're frantically throwing their arms around, or he thinks they're arms, he can't really tell. So he gets a little closer and stuff, right? And so he goes to the first fence, nothing. He's still seeing these creatures, right? Then he gets to the second fence. Now you can kind of see them a little closely. And like I said, they kind of look like they're wearing, I want to switch up here, like a hazmat suit. Okay. That's what I'm
interesting.
like a tiny hazmat suit with like a gas mask. That's kind of the best picture I can do. So he gets a little closer and he notices their color green. And so he sees the ship, sees these like penguin creature things wailing their arms and running all over the place. And this is the part where I love, because this is typical farmer, like human thing you would do. So what do you think you would do? Okay, Meaghan, I'm put you in here. Valentine's Day, you're on your farm, you're going to do your stuff. You go out and see these creatures. What's the first thing you're going to do?
It sounds bad, but if it was my cows, I would be like getting out the shotgun, like I'm gonna protect my herd.
Meaghan,
little tiny green things.
Fast.
Like, Meaghan, slow down. No, I think I'd protect my cows, especially if there's like a whole ship and little creatures walking around. I don't know. What about you, Brooke?
I think that's totally fair. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I feel like I would just.
We're violent, I guess.
Look
protective
out.
of our cows.
Quickly. So he didn't
or just
do
go
that.
to yell at them.
There you go. That's gentler.
Yeah.
So he didn't do that. He threw a rock.
Okay.
Yeah, naturally.
So he rock. He throws this rock, and now something strange happened. It was like a force field. Okay.
Oh.
So he throws the rock. I don't know, ping, whatever the hell it does. It just boom, bounces off, right? There must be a force field. So this is his quote. This is actually from him. He said, I thought I was going right up to it. I got up there, and there it was. I just walked up against the wall. That is
interesting.
Okay. So again, the object just looked like a big shell with a grayish green looking color, and they were wearing grayish green looking, like I said, hazmat suits. Is the best way to look at it. And underneath, there were these oblong holes underneath the ship, and these lights were coming out, and they were so bright. He said he couldn't see when he got up there, but it was like a color wheel. I don't know if you guys,
right,
when your little kids had a little color wheel thing in your room, you'd spin that around. So, so he sees this, right? When he says he had enough, he backed off the craft by 10 feet, and then instead of shooting a shotgun, ladies.
Sorry.
Wow, by the way.
Calm down.
Welcome to Earth, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway,
welcome to Missouri.
He throws another rock, same thing, bounced off. So he notices at this time it's just a futile gesture. Like there's no really way to get to this thing or see this thing. And he sees all of them like scuttling around, and they look like they're really panicky and stuff. And kind of like if you've seen like National Geographics or whatever, the things with the penguins, when they sense like a sea lion's coming toward them, they'll get really panicky.
Right.
And they'll go
panicky, yeah.
Kind of the same thing, right? So he's like, okay, all right, what's going on here? Then the craft and its occupants got back in, and the craft kind of tilted towards them like it was going to come at them. Especially it would come at you two with the shotguns.
That's true. That is true.
So anyway, lifted from the ground, levitated for a little bit. He didn't hear any propulsion system. He didn't hear like, jet engine or, you know what I mean? Just
right.
Something. Total silence. And then it soared up, boom, gone at tremendous speed, took off. So, okay. So here's the thing that I love. Okay. So he did not say anything for years. Not family, not friends, nothing. finally, this one UFO researcher said, was kind of looking around, and he heard some stories about this. It kind of, the way it goes, things just kind of get out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, why this is the most compelling UFO and alien encounter that I read, and the lean on the side of being credible, is the farmers had Edward's hesitancy to report it, and wishing to remain anonymous. So remember,
Right.
lady, he's a simple farmer. He doesn't want people coming on his land and looking for aliens. And so why would he lie? You know what I'm saying? Why would he make this up when there's he gained nothing on this? Zero.
Right.
Very, very true. I can't, I mean, I personally can't imagine a farmer living in a place called Tuscumbia, Missouri, like thinking that he, like wanting to get like notoriety for something like this. It definitely seems, and I think it's interesting because it's like, even though I've never heard another story about aliens that were wearing little green hazmat suits and had flippers, but I feel like it's not so dissimilar to other stories of aliens, like other, gray aliens with their like big black eyes. They're about 3 feet tall. Like, I feel like there are enough similarities to other similar stories where it seems like, it's just people's different like understandings of what's happening, but it could be the same thing that's actually happening, and the same like creatures or extraterrestrials or what have you. I think it's actually really fascinating, personally.
Yeah. I mean, Meaghan, sorry.
Man, I feel a little bad for the little guys. Sorry, I didn't mean to come at you with a shotgun. I just feel bad because it's like, they just came down to earth. They're wearing their cute little jumpsuits. They're trying to stay safe. They're like, okay, we're going to put up our little wall. We're going to, stay protected. They're not trying to, cause harm. And, when they see this farmer, they're like, oh God, we got to get back in our little ship. So it's like, I feel like maybe they just landed by mistake and they were trying to, figure out how to get back to where they're supposed to go. So I feel a little bad for them, but as far as the farmer, it's like, I feel like that's a common trend is people hear these stories or see these things and they don't want people to think they're crazy. So they're like, I'm just not going to say anything. Or maybe they're skeptics. They don't know what they saw or they don't believe what they saw. So I don't know. I guess I don't really blame them.
So is that a yes from both of you? Or
I say I believe them. I personally believe them. I believe the story.
Yeah.
I mean, I love penguins, so if there's an alien version, I'm here for it.
I agree. They sound cute. They sound really cute.
Yeah, they remind me of Minions.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
trying to live their lives.
Or even like the like guys from Among Us, like the little astronaut guys. They kind of look like little dudes. They kind of look like those guys.
Nice. So
they're cute.
There we go. So we're doing pretty good today. We got some yeses on some of our cryptids. So Meaghan, do we go 3 for 3 with Man-Bat? Take it away.
I don't know. You guys. All right. So I have another great story for you all. This one is called The Man-Bat of La Crosse, Wisconsin. And I chose this one as a shout out to my parents. They tune in every week. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad. They actually
love you, Mom. Love you, Dad.
Yeah, love you. I love my parents, John. Okay, I love them. Yes.
I do too.
We all do. They're listeners. We love that.
Yeah, we love all you moms, dads, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles tuning in. So my parents actually met in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So this is a shout out for them. So yes. So the Man-Bat of La Crosse, Wisconsin. This one's kind of weird because it's only ever been seen once by a father and a son. And I'm going to tell you that story today. But the interesting thing about this cryptid is that it has a lot of similarities to some other cryptids. So I might pick Brooke's brain on that later. Yes. All right. So we have this story. I'll set the scene for you. It's September 26th of 2006, and it's late at night. It's about 9:30 p.m. And this 53-year-old dad and his 25-year-old son are driving down this road called Briggs Road in the village of Holman, Wisconsin. That's in La Crosse County, so pretty close. So they're driving down the road in this truck together, having a good time, when all of a sudden their headlights illuminated this figure flying through the air in front of them.
Right.
And they're saying it's this like humanoid, monstrous beast looking thing, and it's headed straight for their truck. So obviously they're freaking out. This thing's about to hit me. So the son actually swerves off onto the side of the road to avoid crashing into this crazy creature he's seeing. They have no idea what it is. But something that's super interesting is that right before this thing's about to hit them, it changes direction spontaneously and it just shoots straight up into the night sky and it just disappears. It's crazy.
Interesting.
And they were saying it was making this like weird shrieking noise too. So obviously these, two men are like pooping their pants. They're terrified.
In their pants. There we go.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both. I know.
Sure.
Yes, but the interesting thing is that after this beast shoots into the sky and disappears, both of these men get instantly sick. So they jump out of the car and they're both just puking their guts out on the side of the road. They're both overcome with illness. They don't feel good.
Ooh.
I think the son might have puked like 7 times in a row.
Ew.
So they're just overwhelmed with illness out of nowhere. So finally, they, start to feel a little better. They get back in the truck and they make their way home. But the interesting thing is that both men remained ill for weeks afterwards with seemingly no explanation, just that they spontaneously felt sick after they saw this thing.
Oh, wow.
So weeks go by, the illness slowly fades away and the dad is like, I need to remember what this thing looked like. So he gets out his pad and paper and he draws a picture. We can put that online so that you guys can see it. But he kind of draws what this thing looked like. And it was grayish brown. It was like 6 to 7 feet tall, so pretty large. But the cool thing about it is it had these large, like leathery bat-like wings that were 10 to 12 feet in span. So it's pretty large and terrifying. It's like a man bat. That's a pretty good title for it. So
yeah. Not Batman.
Yes, the man bat. Yes. So it also had these like large arm-like appendages. They had claws on it. It had these huge monstrous toes, like big feet and toes. But an interesting thing is it had these pronounced ribs on it. So it's like really skinny. You could see all of its ribs sticking out.
Okay.
Yeah. And the last thing is the dad said that it had glowing yellow eyes that reflected back when they were lit up by the headlights.
Nice.
Yeah. So crazy, crazy creature. And this father, like he was not playing around. He was like, this was not a bird. It was not an animal. I'm 100% certain this is a real monster.
Yeah,
so what's
for sure.
Interesting is that this isn't the only story that's like kind of similar to this story in the same area. In 1997, there was a state DNR worker and they were with a road crew. All of them saw this like flying humanoid creature that kind of looked similar to the man bat, but it was a little bit different. They said that it looked like lizard-like and it was greenish brown. So a little bit different. Yeah. But it kind of like flew up into the sky the same way that the man bat did. So it's almost like they're in the same cryptid family, but they're not quite the same.
Right.
Yeah. And then another time, a separate father and son duo than what I was just talking about, they were out searching for their lost dog along the Black River. And they came upon this same like lizard man and it was just staring at them. It was super creepy. Like it would not break eye contact with them. Thankfully, they were able to get away, but it's just very interesting that a lot of these cryptids have very similar attitudes and actions. And it's just interesting. And something that I thought was kind of interesting is there's a theory that there are actually a lot of drownings in the rivers around La Crosse. So maybe this has something to do with the deaths that happen in the area. Like one time there was a death that was reported just after the sighting of this sort of like lizard man bat sort of thing. So was it the same one? Maybe, maybe not. But it's just very interesting. It's very similar to the Mothman, Brooke.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Actually, like weirdly similar because like The Mothman, at least the Point Pleasant, there's a lot of different stories of Mothman, but the one that people know the most is the Point Pleasant, West Virginia Mothman. And the first time that a sighting of that Mothman was reported was actually this couple. I believe it was Roger and Linda Scarberry, and they had like 2 other friends in the car, and they were driving along a road near like an old TNT plant, and had a very, very similar experience where like a big black humanoid creature, they said, like swooped down right at their car and then like disappeared into the night sky like as fast as it showed up. There's a little bit of a difference, I guess, because they said it had glowing red eyes, not yellow.
Yeah,
and they said that and they like kind of described him more as being like furry or like feathered rather than like scaly. But I guess like when it's night, you know, who knows really like whether that was accurate or not. But that's really, really fascinating. And they also did not describe feeling like sick afterwards, but there's other like very weird things that like happen. It seems almost like these humanoid creatures could be like omens of different things, because with Mothman sightings, a lot of times they're tied to like some kind of structural failure or like calamity that happens, versus like maybe the man-bat sightings are more tied to like I don't know, like death or like people. Well, actually, weirdly though, now that I think about it, like the Mothman was also kind of tied to people drowning, because there was a bridge failure, but it did end up like people died because they drowned in the water when their cars went into the bridge when the Silver Bridge collapsed. Like 43 people, I think, ended up drowning and dying. So it's odd that the other sightings would also potentially be connected to like drownings. Very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, let us know what you all think. Send us an email, let us know. We'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to pass it off to Brooke. She's got a great ending story for us. We'll hopefully end on a high note.
We didn't do yes or no on Man-Bat.
Oh, yeah, yes or no.
Yes. All right, go ahead, John. What do you think?
So I'm kind of one thing I've discovered was really kind of interesting recently. There's these things called tupas or topas, and they are developed by people who eventually, you know how when you're thinking about something and you manifest it. So let's say, you know, I don't know, you go to a party and there are a bunch of people sick there, and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna get sick. I know I'm gonna be sick. And then what happens? Next day you get sick.
For sure.
And that's kind of these topas, what they're saying, like, for instance, like Slender Man. Slender Man was made up. Everybody knows it. But now that people are putting their effort and their mind, their collective minds behind it, people are starting to see Slender Man. And they're trying, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So with something like this, maybe it's something that people saw, and now people are like saying like, oh, you know, maybe this is like what I see now, and this is what's going to happen if something bad's going to happen. I don't know if that's true, but it's a really interesting theory that I read recently, how all these paranormal things happen, that we make them happen through our collective mind. So my feeling is that this thing is not real, and it's something to do with just people, I don't know, maybe mixing something up, but I don't know. I would say a no on it, because I'm not really getting the vibe like I've gotten from the other two, that I'm like, oh, definitely that could be it. So Brooke, Meaghan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I actually remember there being an episode of Supernatural about Tulpa, and that was, what happened was that they had like the entire town had essentially like manifested this monster because they all just like thought it was real, and then it just like was thought into existence. And I think that's really interesting, because I do think there's something to that, like the collective consciousness being like powerful enough to kind of will things into happening or into existence. And it could explain a lot of different things. Like it could be an entire theory as to like why any paranormal thing happens, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not real. It just means like, you know, it's very, very fascinating. And I agree. I think that is a definite possibility. I guess I lean towards like, I believe that the father and son like had this experience. Absolutely. Whether or not I think there's an actual man-bat flying around, I don't know. But I believe that like they experienced it, you know? It's like this weird this weird thing where it's like, yes, I believe them, but also like, I don't know if I think it's real, but I believe that it happened.
Right.
But, you know,
there you go.
It's kind of a weird dynamic, but
yes. Yeah. Hey, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to go off of Brooks, I could see how there could be like a cryptid family of all of these different, slightly different creatures. And I do believe that omens could be true.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe for them, this was true to them. But
Sure.
I don't know if I would probably lean towards no, but I do think it could be a thing that cryptids kind of take different shapes and sizes and forms. So it could be different, you know, in each state or each region of the US or even throughout the world. It's interesting.
That's true. It could even be like, maybe there's something about the human psyche that we don't understand, where like people have these kind of psychic feelings that something bad is going to happen, and that for some reason manifests as like them seeing some kind of weird creature. Yeah. And it's like almost like them having like a vision that something bad is going to happen.
Right.
But we don't really understand why or like how it happens, but it just does, you know, like who really knows? I don't know, but
yeah. That's what makes the show so much fun.
Right. And I feel like as we like tell more stories and learn about more people's experiences, we can kind of connect the dots a little bit and maybe like understand it a little bit more, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can move on to our last story unless anyone else had any last
take it away, Brooke.
I'm excited about Peppy.
Yeah, Peppy. This is kind of a fun one, and I think this one kind of reminds me. It's a little bit Hodaggy. It's very much Loch Ness Monster.
I love the Hodag. Yeah,
we love the Hodag. Yes.
Yeah.
So I after doing some research, I do think that this could be like, we could come back to this because it is very interesting, and there's a lot of history about Peppy, the Lake Pepin monster. Peppy's he's called more affectionately by the locals. But so yeah, we'll talk about this fun little cryptid. Lake Pepin, it's located actually on the Mississippi River, so it's kind of like a wider part of the Mississippi River, and then it, you know, continues to go north and south or whatever. And it's actually like bordered, as much of the Mississippi River is in the northern area, by Minnesota and Wisconsin. So Minnesota's on the west side and Wisconsin is on the east side of it. And there is a town called Lake City on the shores of Lake Pepin, which is on the Minnesota side of the lake. And it has a small population between like 5,000 and 6,000 people. But it's actually like a very common kind of touristy place. People go camping there. People go water skiing there. It's very beautiful. And in Lake City and the surrounding areas, tales of Peppy have actually been told since the 1870s, as far as people can tell. Yeah. So the first like documented sighting of this lake monster was in, I think, 1871. It could be before that too, but that's kind of like the first for sure sighting of this monster. And this place really is beautiful. And it's also actually known as the birthplace of water skiing, which I thought was kind of interesting. And yeah, and Laura Ingalls Wilder actually wrote about Lake Pepin in her book, Little House in the Big Woods. So she described her first look at the lake in the following excerpt. So she said, "After a long time, Laura began to see glimpses of blue water between the trees. Then all at once, the road came out of the woods and Laura saw the lake. It was as blue as the sky and it went to the edge of the world. As far as she could see, there was nothing but flat blue water." So she thought it was beautiful. It's honestly like, I mean, it's not that far away realistically. And it's, if you look at pictures, it's very pretty. So similar to tales of the Loch Ness Monster, who obviously is very, very popular and well known, Peppy is supposedly a large serpent-like sea monster. So some people describe it as looking like a prehistoric plesiosaur, which a lot of people, you know, say that's what Nessie looks like too. But others who've seen it describe it more like an eel or a worm. So like a really,
I like that.
Really big worm. Yeah, just a big scary worm. So stories kind of differ, but and it's kind of the same thing with the Loch Ness Monster too. Is like some people say a plesiosaur, some people say it's like a big slithery thing. But so there's a guy who lives in Lake City. His name is Larry Nielsen, and he is a native there to the town. And he is also, interestingly, keep this in mind going forward, he is the president of the tourism board. And
interesting.
Here we go.
Come on down.
Always an interesting, just a little bit of skepticism. And he also is the owner of a 125 passenger paddle boat known as the Pearl of the Lake. So people come to Lake Pepin and they will pay to, take his Pearl of the Lake boat on like sunset cruises, that kind of thing. So he has had an experience, and he actually decided to put up a reward for $50,000 to anyone who can. Yeah, I know, a pretty decent chunk of change. To anyone who can actually prove the Lake Pepin monster is real. So he actually did that in 2008, I believe, is when he announced that, and it's still a thing to this day, as far as I can tell.
I know what we're doing.
I know, right? Wouldn't that be fun? I think that'd be so fun. We should definitely do that. But
that's everything.
So he claims that he and his wife actually had seen or had an experience with the Lake Pepin monster. So he and his wife were out on the lake on one of their boats, and there was like no one else out on the lake in the area, and they actually saw a huge wake about 100 feet long and a foot and a half feet high. And there was like no logical reason for it because there were no other boats out there. So so it was almost like the wake of like a ghost boat. Like that's what I'm like envisioning.
Sure.
But like he thought that it was something under the water, like which would make sense, but that would have to be a very large creature to make that large of a wake, obviously. So he does believe that the Lake Pepin monster is out there. At least that's again what he says. And so he put out this reward. In order to receive the $50,000 reward, the person would have to produce a photograph of Peppy that could be authenticated, that it wasn't like photoshopped, it wasn't faked. And the big piece is that they would have to produce a piece of the creature's scales or fins for DNA testing, and the University of Minnesota biology department would have to confirm that the DNA came from an unknown species in the lake.
Smart.
So that's the kicker, anyone could maybe take a picture of Peppy, but but can you get one of his scales or one of her scales?
Easily
we don't know.
Photoshop something,
for sure, but so no one has done this yet. No one has been able to prove the existence of the Lake Pepin monster yet. Something kind of fun, and again kind of like our friend Linda, Chad Lewis shows up a lot. So Chad Lewis is a Wisconsin cryptozoologist, and he has conducted his own searches for Peppy, and he also co-wrote a book on the monster with No Voss called Peppy, the Lake Monster of the Mississippi River. Kind of fun because, again, we have a friend that we worked with at our last company is friends with Chad Lewis, so we kind of have like a different connection with him too. But he writes tons of books about like Midwest lore and cryptids and things like that. So in his book, he says that tales of Peppy go back to the Dakota Indians who, while they lived in the area of Lake Pepin, actually stopped using birch canoes, and they actually traded them out for like thicker dugout canoes, specifically because the creatures who lived in Lake Pepin could like puncture their thinner birch canoes. So very interesting. And it was actually interesting too because Chad Lewis, like there was a quote, I can't remember exactly what it was, I didn't put it in my outline, so I don't have the exact quote, but he said that like normally he's very skeptical when approaching like cryptid stories like this, and he says he usually can go kind of like 50-50 on any given story, but he was more inclined to believe that there was like something going on with Lake Pepin because of like the stories that he had heard from the natives who had lived in the land for a very long time, because he said usually that's not the case. Like usually there's not as many stories like dating back that far, but he just thought it was really interesting. So he said he was more like 75-25 on not necessarily that like it's like a big sea serpent plesiosaur, but that there's like something living in the lake that maybe people don't like understand. So that was interesting. And he also talked about how the stories of Peppy actually make a lot of sense because Lake Pepin is actually very similar geographically to Loch Ness. Which is kind of interesting. So Loch Ness is actually 22 miles long and 1 mile wide. And Lake Pepin is 23 miles long and 2 miles wide. So very similar in terms of like the area.
Right.
Loch Ness is much, much deeper. As we know, most of the like lakes and everything in the Midwest, it's not that deep. But Loch Ness, I don't know the exact number, but it's a very, very deep lake. So that's a much different. But both are also surrounded by like beautiful hills and forests. And he said that like a person, if you just like looked at photos and you weren't like really familiar, you wouldn't really know the difference between the two lakes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so he thought he thinks it's kind of interesting, and it makes sense that there's kind of these stories about both lakes. So but many people claim to see this monster every year. And some people do have pretty convincing evidence. So Larry Nielsen, again, this is the guy, the tourism guy. And he said that a fisher once showed him a sonar image of something that was 16 to 17 feet long that was moving underneath his boat. And I guess this fisher was trying to show this as proof to get the $50,000, but he did not. He did not produce
come on, Larry.
a scale.
Look at
Yes, he needed the DNA evidence and he didn't have it, so he did not get the money. But yeah, other people have like taken pictures. I did put one picture at the bottom of our outline, but there's like there's quite a few people who've had experiences. As you might expect, being in the Midwest, one of the main theories about what Peppy could actually be is that it's a sturgeon. As we know, especially, if you listening are unfamiliar with sturgeons, the largest one caught in Wisconsin that I could find was nearly 7.5 feet long.
Yeah,
they get huge. Yeah, they weighed 240 pounds and was estimated to be 125 years old, which I think that definitely makes sense given how long the stories have been kind of told. Like maybe this is just a gigantic sturgeon, and that's not even the biggest sturgeon that's ever been caught. There's other sturgeons that have been like longer than 10 feet and would weigh more than 300 pounds. But notoriously they live for very long periods of time. Sturgeons can live, some people think that potentially they could live to be like 200 years, and we just haven't like, caught one or seen one. It's crazy. But interestingly, also sturgeons are notoriously bottom feeders. So it's not like you wouldn't really just see them in the lake, like that's the other thing that people are like, well, like how would it really be a sturgeon? Because they don't like swim to the top of the lake for like really any reason. But it's it's a possibility. It is definitely a possibility that fisher guy who saw who caught on sonar or something in the lake beneath him, that would have been a sturgeon. But 17 feet long, that would be an insanely large sturgeon.
Yeah, it would be.
I know sturgeons are like, they freak me out, man. Like I know that they're bottom feeders, they're totally harmless, but oh my god, they're so freaking big. It's crazy.
Yeah.
If you look up pictures of it, it's like, oh my god. But anyway, so Nielsen, again, he knows of 7 or 8 different lake expeditions that have occurred to find Peppy, and actually Chad Lewis was part of one of those expeditions. So I had a picture of him kind of like in the water with his like sonar machine too. It was kind of fun. So far they have not had any luck. However, Nielsen still believes the monster exists and that it's not a sturgeon. And maybe it's just a coincidence that the tales of the monster have been so far very good for tourism in Lake City, the industry in which he works.
Again, marketing. We love it.
Right? I know, exactly. That's why it kind of reminded me of the Hodag. And on the Lake City tourism website, there's actually an entire page dedicated to Peppy as well, and like how you can search for Peppy when you tour the city. Brilliant. But so it's very fun. And then just a quick quote from Chad Lewis to end things. He said, "I take comfort in knowing that after hundreds of years of sightings, the Lake Pepin water serpent remains just as intriguing and puzzling as it did when the first native people encountered it. I sincerely hope that no matter what happens, Peppy continues to keep the people on the shores of Lake Pepin on their toes," which I thought was fun.
That's
and then, there's a little picture from the Lake City website too. It looks very friendly in the picture. Yeah, it just looks like a friendly little.
It looks like a children's show, right? It
does.
Peppy the Pep monster, whatever.
Exactly.
We're workshopping it, people.
I would love like a little kids like animated show about like cryptids just like enjoying their lives and thinking of new ways to like fool the people, and that'd be so fun. But yeah, like so that's the lake pet monster.
So yes or no? What do we think, Brooke?
I'm gonna go with a no on this one. I do think that there's probably like maybe a very large sturgeon. That maybe like maybe a very, very large sturgeon that's like super old. And for maybe it's like disoriented and confused and like goes to the top of the water more than other sturgeons because it's like old and senile. I don't know. But I I feel like maybe that's it.
Where am I going?
Yeah, maybe it doesn't know where it is, has bad eyesight, I don't know. But yeah, I can see the thing that like I don't know. I would like to actually like learn more about the older sightings because I feel like I focus too much on that Larry Nielsen guy, and I'm like I believe that he's like milking it for the tourism.
Oh, for sure,
for sure. Yeah. So it's hard to be like, oh, I totally believe it when that guy's involved. But like, I would like to hear more stories. Maybe read Chad Lewis's book. That would be interesting for sure. So right now I'm kind of like a skeptical leaning no, but I feel like I could be more convinced if I looked more into it.
Yeah. What do you think, Meaghan?
I'm gonna go with no on this one. It's kind of giving me Hodag vibes. Like,
Hodag vibe. Okay.
Great for tourism. So I love the story behind it, though. I will give that to Peppy.
Yeah, for sure. He's very cute.
We're 3 for 3, ladies. No. Just because that's one of the things to have that thing survive. It would have to, mate. So unless there's a sturgeon, there's a sturgeon around being like some hybrid,
maybe
sturgeon. Who knows? Some crazy
could
stuff
be
has happened, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So great show. Again, love it. We had a couple yeses. So the Banshee kind of, it was a yes on that. And, Man Bat, we're kind of like, maybe we got that. Peppy, I'm sorry, but you are going to be a children's show. We'll figure it out. Trust us.
Sure.
And then, we, again, coming back to with the space penguins, aliens, kind of yes on that one. And then, of course, with the little people,
the haunchies.
But I love all these stories because it shows you how much rich history is not only in our state but other places that really make people come together to tell their stories, which I think is the best. And that's why we're doing this show. One of the reasons, because we love the paranormal, which we talked about in our first episode with the Hodag. And, the biggest thing, too, is I really want to tell people, especially, I'm going to do a shout out to our super fan, Commander Sani. He's been with us since day one, and he comments, hey, shout out to you.
Yes.
Because we love it. We love to hear everyone kind of give their opinion about what they think. We love personal stories. So, again, Dairyland Frights at gmail.com. Please tell your personal story if you had any of these things. Also, tell us if you want us to do a little bit more on Peppy or Man Bat or Banshee, and we'll see what we can do because, we want to do everything we can to make this show fun and interesting for people. And by doing that, remember, subscribing to us on YouTube, all the major ones, podcast sites out there. And it's really, really exciting so far of where we've gotten. Ladies, we have people in New York listening to us now.
Nice.
All right, cool. We love you all.
So, hey, what's up, New York? What's up?
Yeah, very convincing.
John and the accents.
Yeah.
Hey, well, forget about it. Somehow I got New York people mad at me. That's okay. So no, we have people California, we have people in the Netherlands, Canada. Please tell your family and friends because we love to, like I said, not only growing our small podcast, could turn to a bigger podcast, and we'd love to again hear your story. So, Meaghan, Brooke, what else can you tell us to do a little sign off here?
We're just excited. I think we'd love to hear people's ideas for future episodes. We have tons of ideas. We don't have any, we have books and books full of ideas of cryptids and legends and spooky stories from around the Midwest, but we'd love to hear from people who have like personal experiences. I think that always makes it a lot more fun and more fun and engaging. So definitely let us know.
Meaghan?
I think one thing I'm taking away from today is that we need to be a little nicer to our cryptid friends. Not all of them are trying to, come out to get us. Maybe the haunchies, maybe. But maybe some of them might be a little misunderstood. So maybe we should have a little bit more compassion to our cryptid friends.
I agree. Totally
agree to you cryptids out there. If anyone's listening, hey,
who knows?
Right?
Yeah, come on the show. We'd love to hear from you.
So next week we have another full episode.
Right.
We'll do another mini episode. It will come up. Believe me, we got plenty of stuff on it. But I'm super excited about this. The Ridgeway Ghost. Okay, let me give a little teaser here. He's the first ghost to ever hurt a person. The actual physical contact. Okay. And then, Brooke, I love it.
Yeah, the Mineral
vampire
Point
story.
I think that'll be fun.
Vampire.
Yes.
So, among other things we'll have out there. So, again, tell your ghosts we say hi, and Parasconis, we love you, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Bye.
Yeah.